Building works on the seminary began about 3 years ago. But in fact, I'm in my 6th year, and I've been coming to the building site nearly every month. 2, 3 people from each year would come to the seminary building site. We used to do all sorts of things. The Lviv city authorities gave us 17 hectares of land in 2001. There was supposed to be a L'viv Seminary Center, with a seminary for the Redemptorist Fathers, a seminary for the Studite Fathers, a seminary for the Franciscan Fathers, and of course to include the Ukrainian Catholic University Theological Faculty. There was also to be a pastoral mission center. Gentlemen, we went this way, up this road, and we took pictures from the bridge. We passed this way, like so, and then we saw the hill on which the teaching center is to be built. We are now in the region, about here, and on this, the highest point, the church will stand. Whilst the student hostel, for the seminarians, will be on that slope.
Прийди за спокій озлоблених життєвими незгодами, прийди, зм'якши серця в день закам'янілості і гніву, прийди, оживи мене з духовної мертвоти, прийди, звільни мене від духа жорстокості і безмилосердя, прийди, сокруши хитрощі, бунту і острахи блудні.
We started putting up this building in July 2002. Of course, the greater part, 90% of the costs of building the seminary, were covered by aid to the church in need. The history of cooperation between our seminary and aid to the church in need goes back a long way. As soon as our previous cardinal, Mirosław Ivan Lubachevsky, returned to Ukraine, Father Werenfried van Straten came with him at the same time, and that was the moment he promised he would help build the seminary. The seminary has existed for 222 years. And this, I believe, is the seminary's 3rd site. The first was in the center of the city at one time, but was taken away from us in 1945.
The Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church was the biggest illegal church in the world for much of the 20th century, and which was the biggest community of social opposition within the Soviet Union.
This church was condemned to be annihilated, officially non-existent, working in the outback, in hiding. My name is Father Bogusław. I studied at the underground seminary. Studying at the seminary was very, how can I put it, very strange. In fact, only the two of us would meet, professor and student. When we left home, we would bid our nearest and dearest farewell, as if we were never to meet them again, because no one knew what the future had in store. Being an underground seminary student carried with it the threat of at best a prison sentence, and at worst, God forbid, a death sentence, or being sent to Siberia. I talked with the sisters, with the bishops, with the priests who worked at that time. What today is becoming reality probably belongs to dreams realized, hidden hopes raised from the underground. It is in a sense the fruit of their labors. Many a time they risked exile, deportation to Siberia, to Kolyma, yet they continued working. And now there are signs of a rebirth, of real development, of a great dynamism. And of course that gives us great hope. Hope for the future of this church, for the future of the Christian Catholic part of Ukraine. When this tremendous eruption of freedom, this explosion of the nations of the Soviet Union took place in '89, the Greek Catholic Church, here in Western Ukraine, was also a part of that process that inspired people to break free from communism. Greek Catholic parishes began to spring up in all sorts of ways. Some priests, who had worked in the Orthodox Church, passed to the Greek Catholic Church. At other times, parishes were initiated by priests who had formerly worked in the catacombs, in the underground. And immediately, the problem of training new priests and the need to build and renew seminaries came to the fore. We had a very, so to speak, temporary situation after 1990, in which they managed to improvise for 15 years. The first year, 1990 to 91, the seminary functioned very haphazardly. Candidates to the priesthood either studied in private homes or in Lviv's church. It was then that the search began for an appropriate building that would ensure the necessary normal conditions for the seminary to function. A decision was rapidly taken, following talks with Lviv city authorities, to hand over buildings just outside Lviv, in the town of Rudno. A former communist youth summer camp for so-called pioneers. Work soon began to adapt the building to the needs of a seminary. Of course, the buildings were built to meet the needs of a communist order, and only in summer.
was obvious that this was not a good solution, that they had to find a more permanent solution. There was no room for a library here, there was no heating, the showers were somewhere else, there was no provision to live here in winter.
As soon as I arrived at the seminary, I immediately undertook to spare no effort in getting the new seminary built. What is more, one fit for the 21st century.
Father Bogusław also promised he would help to construct a proper seminary which is built as a seminary, and so that it can function as a seminary in an ideal way. It wasn't just a question of a seminary. We saw that there was the whole field of higher theological formation that had to be solved, not just for the diocesan seminary, but also for the religious orders, for the sisters, and for laity. After 70 years of communism, where no religious training was possible, it takes a long time to build that up.
Today, we have the first fruits of the resurrection of the Church.
This year, together with the Studites and Redemptorist Fathers, in all about 250 seminarians will begin the new school year. We have seminarians from 7 Ukrainian dioceses here. Not to say that we are the only seminary in Ukraine. In fact, the Greek Catholic Church has 5 seminaries in Ukraine. The Stryjska diocese has all its seminarians here. Over 50 study at our seminary. We also have students from Armenia, from Kazakhstan, from Russia. There are also a couple of students from America. In fact, the number of foreign students is on the increase because Ukrainian education is not yet as expensive as it is abroad, so that bishops prefer to send them here rather than suffer the substantial costs, all the more so as the necessary preparatory teaching base is in place. And in any case, if a future priest is to work in a Ukrainian milieu, then he should at least come to Ukraine and breathe Ukrainian air.
There are about 37,500 Ukrainian Catholics in Australia. We have an eparchy or a diocese. We have churches throughout the whole country. We have been sending our priests to Rome, but with the building of this very beautiful seminary here in Lviv, we are going to be sending our seminarians to Lviv, Ukraine. The quality of education here is really good. They have a good staff. They have good discipline. This is a very famous seminary, and this is just a new building, but the tradition here is very long, and there are very many great people, and even saints have come from the former seminary here in Lviv.
This year we took in more seminarians into the seminary than we ever expected. I hoped that for the first course we would take on 20, 25 seminarians. We took over 40. We presently have seminarians from the Kiev region, from Vinnytsia, from Odessa, and also from the eastern Ukraine. And of course, our priests who come out of our seminary go to work in the eastern Ukraine.
The country is very big, so it's going to need missionaries or priests who go out to work in areas that are still not covered today. A lot of people who once lived here after the war, they were sent to Siberia or deported to eastern Ukraine, and they have been waiting for 50 years for the church to come.
The first question we ask anybody who comes here and crosses the seminary threshold is, why have you come here? By coming here, what is it that you want to show to yourself, to the world, to the church? Well, the answers vary greatly. Of course, the most often given response is that they were inspired by somebody's example. That somebody could be a parish priest, a bishop, it could be the Holy Father, or a completely layperson who somehow managed to show that aspirant a truly Christian life. The Holy Father, John Paul II's death, undoubtedly became a decisive moment for some callings.
We believe that witness has much to tell us today. Just like martyrdom was the foundation for the fathers of the church, we believe that this 20th century battle in victory over totalitarianism, over systems that hated God and man, this victory will bring us into a new future.
Він відживляє душу мою, веде мене по стежках правих із-за імені свого. Навіть коли б я ходив посеред тіні смертної, я не боюся лиха, бо ти зі мною єси. Жезло твоє і палиця твоя ті мене потішають. Ти приготував для мене стіл, незважаючи на моїх противників. Ти намастив оливою голову мою, а твоя чаша напуває мене надміру, і милість твоя буде супроводити мене в усі дні життя мого, і я житиму в домі Господнім повіки вічні.
Навіки вічний, слава Богу нашому, навіки вічний.
За місто це і за святу обительцю, і за кожне місто, село, країну, і за тих, що вірою живуть у них, Господеві помолімся.
Нині і повсякчас, і навіки вічні. Амінь. Алілуя, алілуя, алілуя.
Радуйтеся, праведні, радуйтеся, праведні, радуйтеся.
Our church here in Ukraine is becoming calmer. We no longer need to fight to survive, as we had to do in the first years, following our emergence from the catacombs. And of course, the Ukrainian revolution has also had a positive effect, also in relation to callings. This generation is the one with a different view of the world, a different view of the communist reality.
This new center also includes the theological faculty of the Ukrainian Catholic University. This represents a new future vision for the church. It is no longer possible for lay people and clergy, members of different religious orders, to act completely autonomously and separately. We need to work together. This is, I think, a living icon of this future vision. If we study together, we will be together in life. I think that kind of friendship, that kind of solidarity will be very effective. And we hope that that will be a guarantee for the most effective cooperation of all members of the body of Christ. The laity constitute 99% of the membership of the church. So the role of laity necessarily has to be recognized. We believe that by opening up theology and various apostolates of the church to lay people, calling them to leadership roles, the church will be able to use this incredible resource of the faith, energy, and generosity and sacrifice of lay men and women.
About 45% of the theological faculty building has presently been completed, whilst the Studentat building, in other words, the Redemptorist Seminary, is about 15% completed. The needs continue to be great, but the Lord is good. I always believe that if someone approaches the creation of something for the church with prayer, then God will help.
We are now short on resources, but the Lord has provided when we have been in want in the past, so we hope that we will find those that can support us today.
Not stones, not walls, but faith in man, faith in God, witnessed in an everyday existence. Is what makes this construction project living, active, and useful to our church. Because every good seminary is not only a treasure renewing the eparchy or region, but a treasure of the whole church.